Hello and welcome to Misaal. My name is Zahed and I'm your host. On this podcast, I talk candidly with the most innovative minds working towards building a better startup economy in Pakistan. In this episode of the Misaal podcast, I talk to Meenah Tariq. She's the co-founder and CEO of Metric, a startup accounting app that helps founders track finances, gain insights, and grow their business. We discussed why she transitioned from being a VC to building her own startup, how Metric is helping startup founders with all their accounting needs, why we don't see that many SaaS startups in Pakistan, and her experience raising $900,000 from top-notch VCs. Let's listen in. Welcome to the Misaal podcast. Meenah, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
So how are things going in startup land? How are startups doing overall since you have access to so many startups? So how are things going?
We're okay generally, but it's been a bit of a shake-up this year, as I think everybody knows by this point. There's been like a whole bunch of layoffs in like pretty big startups here in Pakistan, and then overall like this whole like winter is coming, recession's around the corner kind of thing that's kind of happening, and we've been hearing that people are not investing as much, definitely not investing at the kind of valuations that were happening last year. So it's you can call it the start of a correction. So it's kind of shaken things up a little bit. And there's a bit of, I wouldn't say depression right now, but definitely anxiety around what the rest of this year will bring. So it's interesting. And last year we were at like, oh my God, this is awesome. Everything's awesome. This is how it's going to be forever. There's so much money. There's abundance. There's this, there's that. And then this year we're like, okay, now we've got to worry about things. So I think that's kind of the general mood right now. And people are rethinking their fundraising strategy. People are thinking about recession proofing their businesses. Those are the kind of lines that startups as well as investors are thinking along right now.
When I first have heard about Metric, I was like, okay, I know that you were on the other side before, so you were investing in startups. So when I first heard about Metric, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. She's going to the dark side. So I would love to hear more about how your experience has been going from investing to basically building your own startup. So how has that transition been, and why did you decide to work on Metric?
So first of all, I don't know which side is the dark side actually, because when we moved to the VC side, I remember Umar, who's my co-founder, and he was also a VC before this. I remember when he first joined as a VC partner, he met like a VC from I think Saudi Arabia, and that guy said to him, welcome to the world of venture capital. You're going to see some dark times here. And at that time, Zahid, Omar and I were like, oh my God, this is so awesome. VC is great. We're going to have the time of our lives. We're just like handing money out. This is the best thing ever. And we're like, what dark times is he talking about? And then we did see some dark times. So I don't really know what the darker side is, but I think building a startup is definitely the harder side of things. Definitely way harder than kind of what our jobs were when we were VCs. For us, the decision to switch came from a couple of things. First of all, our like very deep belief in this idea, this product that we wanted to build, because we truly believed that people needed this. People that we'd been working with over the last decades, businesses that we'd seen, startups that we, watched very, very closely. We saw them struggling with accounting and finance over and over again. So we really believed in this product that we wanted to build. And then we also thought we were too young to be on the VC side. And all the other VCs were like 10 years older. And we realized that maybe we should be doing something more and something deeper right now. And then 10 years later, we can always circle back and go back to the other side. But right now, we wanted to create a different type of value. And I guess that's why we switched to Metric.
So how's the journey been so far? Like, what are some of the challenges that your product or the product is trying to solve? And what's the reception been like? Are startups, understanding the value proposition of Metric? And why are you looking to solve this problem for startups? What's your motivation behind it besides making money, of course?
Yeah, I'm making less money than I was making before. So I've had to take a pay cut to do this, which is fun in a looming recession situation for a couple with a kid. Yeah. So our why, Zahid, is that, so again, for me, everything that I've done in the last decade has been for the cause of entrepreneurship. I truly believe very strongly in entrepreneurship as an economic force that has the power to change the face of nations, to change societies, to change families, and to change individuals. And over the course of my own life, I saw it over and over again. Like I've seen the kind of independence and empowerment that comes from entrepreneurship. I've seen how entrepreneurship is a leveler. It is truly democratizing, and it gives you power in a country, in an emerging market, in a country such as Pakistan. It gives you power that you frankly cannot find anywhere else. It gives you autonomy. So for me, that's what I truly believe in. And so all of the work that I've been doing has been in service to that. So forget metric. Let's go like a little bit, further back. I was working as an accelerator lead, and then I was working as a head of accelerator at Invest to Innovate, and I was designing programs for entrepreneurs of all sorts. And we were traveling across Pakistan. We were working with your more sophisticated founders. We were also doing stuff with SMEs. And then from that, I went to the World Bank and I became a consultant with them. And I became an advisor on entrepreneurship for a few of their kind of projects, but specifically for a project called WeFi, the Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative. From designing it out, from pitching it internally to getting approvals within the World Bank for that project, to seeing the implementation from 2018, the end of 2018 to date, WeFi has been my baby. And we've been able to reach about 400 women's entrepreneurs across the country. And at the same time, I was working with USAID as a trainer on their small and medium enterprise activity. With them, I traveled across Pakistan, went to smaller cities, so tier 2, tier 3 cities, and personally trained about 600 to 700 women entrepreneurs, for business growth. These were 2-day trainings. It was almost like a focus group session with 30 to 50 women at a time in a small city in Pakistan, just sitting in a room, trying to understand their problems and trying to give them the kind of advice and the kind of insights that will help them solve their problem and grow their businesses. So I did that. And then I moved to VC, where I started understanding how fundraising worked, and again, realizing how big of an issue accounting and finance was. So for me, all of it just falls into that one bucket of serving the cause of entrepreneurship, of enabling people to make better lives for themselves, enabling people to create value for themselves, for their families, for their communities, for the beneficiaries that they're solving that problem for. When we came to metric, again, because Umar is a chartered accountant. So when I was working and we're also married, by the way. So when I was working at Invest to Innovate, I convinced Umar to meet some entrepreneurs, because I would work with the entrepreneurs and see how much of an issue accounting was. And on the other hand, I had a chartered accountant in my house who was doing nothing with entrepreneurs. So I had to convince him, drag him to the first entrepreneurship event. And he was very reluctant. I take full credit for his career, by the way, because had I not dragged him to that one event and had that entrepreneurship bug not bitten him at that point, he would probably not have done any of the other things that he did. He would have been in accounts payable in Zong or something. Does Zong exist anymore? I don't know. But yeah, you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I forced Omar to work with some of our entrepreneurs, because I was like, they're being held hostage because they're so scared of numbers. And you get this. So can you please give them some advice? And he started working with them. And so over the years, we constantly saw how businesses were held hostage by their fear of numbers, by their fear of accounting, by the anxiety which just the thought of accounting induces. And these are some pretty great founders, but just because they're a founder, we can't expect them to be fantastic accountants also. And on the other side, because Umar was at PwC Pakistan, we saw that our accounting firms they're not incentivized to be working with startups or SMEs. They go after big clients and big money. They're not developing products for this specific kind of strata in the market. They don't care about them. And frankly, because they haven't worked with them in forever, they don't know what the requirements are on the other side of the table either. And we knew what those requirements were. I've worked in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Iraq. So we understand emerging markets and SMEs and startups in emerging markets. And took a very long time to respond to this question of yours, but that's how Metric was born. For us, it's been a labor of love because we truly believe that this is a product that will help these businesses grow, that will help these businesses solve for their fear of accounting. The product itself, our focus is simplicity and ease of use, so that nobody has to like look at scary Excel templates and think, they think that they should just put it off till tomorrow or day after, or until they can afford a financial analyst or a CFO or an accountant, etc. A founder should be able to get a pulse check at any time that they want. A founder should be able to see their numbers in a format that they can understand. And that's what we're trying to solve for.
I see that you are really good at communicating the value proposition as well as your experience with teaching. And I think, so I don't know if you know, but I took a class with Umar last year when he was teaching a class on venture capital. So he also was very passionate about teaching. So I guess you guys make like a great founder co-founder pair, so that's really amazing. I have a personal question. So I mean, since you guys are married, right, so when it comes to business decision as like co-founders, is it more like divide and conquer, or is it more like we will discuss it but one person will have to disagree with another person and we'll make a decision that way? Like, how does it work between you two?
At the core of our partnership with Umar and I, it is just the deepest respect for the other person's intelligence. And I think that's the most important asset that we have as partners. I truly respect Umar's intelligence. I know how deeply he understands what his areas of expertise are. And if he gives me any advice in what the things are that like fall under kind of my scope of work, I take them as very seriously with due consideration because I really respect his intelligence. And he does the same for me. So he truly, so I'm the CEO also, and he gives me the respect and the space, and like the respect for my intelligence, not respect for my person, but respect for my intelligence in knowing that if I'm pushing back on something or if I'm giving him an idea that maybe he doesn't necessarily agree with, he will give it due consideration. So for us, that's what makes decision-making easier. There are some decisions that we take separately from each other. Running a startup is an insane amount of work. So you have to divide and conquer. You can't both be doing everything at the same time. But we also, because we want to learn so much, we try to understand what the other person is doing constantly at the same time also. Because again, we want to be founders that understand every part of their business. So we get everything, but we will leave some pieces to the other person. And yeah, because we are married and we live in the same house, these conversations never end. So like, frankly, for us, the work doesn't stay in the offices. There's no such boundaries, which is probably very unhealthy. And if my therapist is seeing this, she's not going to be happy about it. But like, we'll talk about this when the baby goes to sleep, like as we're putting the baby to bed, we'll discuss, okay, this is what happened today. And this is something that we need to think about tomorrow. So yeah, it's been working out. But yeah, I think the one thing that works for us is just respect for the other person's intelligence.
Do you have days when you say like no work talk?
So for that, we have to leave the city for the most part. It doesn't happen. Yeah, you have to go on a vacation, and preferably like some place where you're either like you have a lot of activities planned or like where you don't have the internet. So recently, like last weekend, Umar is from Kashmir, so he had his family has like an ancestral home in Kashmir, and we just like went for the weekend. And because the internet wasn't great there, you have to disconnect, and you have to like kind of. So, okay, I'll tell you something that we realized recently. When you go out in the nature, you can look further. So generally, when you're in a city, or like if I'm in the room, I can see as far as this wall. Or, if I'm walking down on the street, I can see as far as the next building. But when you're out in nature, when you're in the mountains or wherever, you can see much further. And somehow that is relaxing for the brain, is what we realized. It like maybe just takes away the noise from everything that's like in our line of vision at all points in time. And it makes your brain slow down. And that we realize is very important for us. So that's why we take like these short breaks here and there, where we'll just go somewhere and we'll kind of like disconnect for a couple of days. And then usually on the way back, we discuss work. Because by that time, our brain is like ready to get back into the grind. So the journey back home, we're always discussing, okay, what happens next? But that's what works for us.
Being away from like when you get stuck in the weeds, you're going from one task to another task. And when you like zoom out a little bit, like you can reflect a lot more. And of course, it always helps. How many people do you have currently in your team, and how do you approach hiring? Because hiring is at early stage startups, hiring is extremely important. It sets the tone, it sets the culture, and you cannot make mistakes hiring when you're such a small team. So how do you approach hiring? What do you look for in candidates?
So we're almost 30 people now, which is just, it gives me goosebumps every time I say it, because
that's a lot of people for a startup.
It is a lot of people, but like we're still, I think one person is still doing like probably work that they should probably get more people to work on with them, just because you've just got to move so fast. Okay, it just doesn't stop anywhere, right? So we're 30 people, nearly 30 people, including staff. And we have our tech team is in-house, our marketing is in-house. All of these things are in-house functions for us. Our philosophy. So first of all, I mean, and you've taken Omar's course. I don't know if he talked about values in that course also, but like Omar is like a big proponent of values, and so am I. So one of the first things that we did, like back when we first started, which is I think July, August of last year, is we sat down and we talked through what we think the values of our company should be. And the values usually trickle down from like who the founders are and what their personal values are, and then what they think will work. But we set down what we think are important values to us and what the kind of culture is that we want to create. And if you don't have that conversation early on, then Zayed, your culture will get created. You just probably won't like it. So you either build the culture or the culture builds itself, and then you sometimes don't like the company that you've built yourself. So we took those decisions kind of early on. We worked a lot on like what our values are, and we try to hire for those values. So our hiring approach is first who, then what. So a lot of the people that are in our teams were actually people that we just felt would be great. And then we almost fit them into specific roles that we thought would be good for them, or co-designed roles with them. We don't believe in, kind of putting our employees in boxes and then forcing them to stay there. So if we have somebody who joined as an accountant, but she really hated accounting. And so she told us early on that she'd like to move on from this at some point. So like 7 months of accounting later, post our fundraise, when we had more positions open up, we sat down with her, we designed out what in the short term and medium term her career could look like, what are the areas that she could move into. And she's moved into a completely different department now, and she's thriving there. She really enjoys it. She's doing great work. So that's kind of our philosophy. And for everybody else that we've hired also, we hire people for who they are, for how they connect to the values that we're trying to build. And we hire for diversity for sure. We have people from very, very different types of backgrounds. And we want to add to that even more, because we truly believe that diverse teams work better. They perform better. They perform better under stress. The company culture, is always better when you have diversity. So those are some of the things that we've kind of put in place to make sure that we hire the right people for the company that we're trying to build. And then the kind of roles come in and what they do will come in, and things change. We are still learning. We're still trying to figure out what a lot of these departments will look like maybe a year down the line, or 2 years down the line, or 5 years down the line, and trying to plan for that. But it's been fun, because last year specifically, there was a talent war in Pakistan. A lot of these really large startups had big amounts of money, and they were taking up talent at like 3x salaries. And for a small startup that's just done a pre-seed like us, with a pretty small amount in the bank, we couldn't match those salaries. But what we do offer is our vision and the mission to automate accounting, and not just automate accounting, but the mission to make business easier for SMEs in emerging markets, the mission to help businesses grow across emerging markets by automating accounting. So people who believe in that mission, people who believe in us, people who like the culture that we've built. We've had people come and take pay cuts, but work with us versus others?
I don't personally see that many SaaS-based startups in Pakistan, which is what you are. Is there a reason for this? Because I would think, given the amount of resources that Pakistan has in terms of like a lot of freelancers who have done a lot of work for other companies, especially Western countries, they would have the product experience or product management experience to build products, SaaS-based products. And because once you have something, it's very easy to scale a SaaS-based product as long as you're not like, things are not breaking for you. So why do you think not that many startups try to tackle SaaS-based businesses in Pakistan?
There is this thought that emerging markets don't pay for SaaS. And that's something that we're also fighting. Like even when we were fundraising, we heard that from a few investors. But this thought is changing because now more and more SaaS-based products are coming out of like emerging markets in general, not necessarily Pakistan. For Pakistan, I think our tech talent is very used to working in software houses where they're developing products. And we had that bit of a challenge ourselves when we first started hiring our tech team, because when we hired our tech team, everybody comes from a software house background. So for them to switch their thought process from like building things for clients versus building something for your own company, which then the business part of your company will also be selling. And so like everything changes. The way you think about the product changes. And that's been a learning curve for us, as well as for the tech team, as well as for the product team, as well as for like the marketing team even. And it has been a learning curve. And that is why I think that a lot of people aren't building these products. I think this will change. It has started to change, but it will still take some time. Because people don't believe that people will pay for SaaS in emerging markets. And secondly, they're so used to doing software houses kind of work, and software houses are making a lot of money doing what they do. Why should they put additional resources into something new and like take that risk on?
So you brought up that when you were trying to raise money. So I want to learn more about that experience. How was it like, and how many meetings did it take you to get everyone on the same page?
I think we were very, very privileged in where we were when we approached fundraising. And I think it's very important for me to address that privilege before I talk about my fundraising journey at all, because I had the privilege of coming from the VC side of the table, which means I had the privilege of like being on first name basis with most of the VCs, including VCs that had ended up investing in us. I had the privilege of like having worked with them for years and years. So these people knew me. And you've taken Omar's course, Zahid, you know how much it matters if you've already kind of crossed that bridge of you as a personal brand, who you are as a person, because that's what VCs look at first and foremost. Who are you? And that's who they're taking that bet on, right? You're betting on the jockey, you're not betting on the horse. Our horse ended up being very lucky also, because we thought we were building a product, it was in our head, we believed in it, but we're not the only ones building this particular product. And other startups that were comparable to us at the same time or just before us raised very substantial rounds. Sequoia invested in a comparable, of Metric. So there's startups in like more developed markets that are billion-dollar companies right now, which are comparable to us. So our startup was familiar for a lot of these investors. They didn't have to worry about like what the business model is going to look like, because they've seen it play out in other markets. And that was like a big, kind of check mark. And then what it came down to was, who are these 2 people or 3 people, and would they be the right people to do this product in this market? And we had that privilege of like being very visible already. So people that Eye2Eye is our lead investor. Kulsum's been working with me since 2015 at this point in time. So she has seen me at my lowest and at my best. She knows how I operate. And so for her, I think the decision was easy. And she's seen Umar operate since, I think, 2017, I want to say, 16 or 17. So with him also, we were not unknown quantities, which frankly made things easier for us. But also, and I read an article about this recently also, you have to increase your surface area of luck, I think it's called, right? You increase that surface area by reaching out to people, by going for opportunities that will give you that kind of exposure, by doing things that will build your credibility even further, by talking about your work, and all of that like you kind of increase that surface area, so the opportunities that come, there's a bigger chance that they'll stick. And we did that also. I reached out to so many people, Zahid. So, I've said I came from a place of privilege, but I still cold messaged and cold emailed. I will have to take out my list to tell you. I had like a full-on list. I cold messaged so many people, even on LinkedIn. I even messaged people on Twitter. I would go and see, who invested in comparable startups in other countries. Then I would find that list of VCs. Then I would find partners in those VC funds. And then I would message them saying, congratulations, your investment in XYZ is doing really well. Are you interested in investing in a similar startup in a fantastic emerging market, Pakistan? This is the case for Pakistan. This is the case for Metric. This is who I am and why I think that I'm going to be great at like doing this particular startup in Pakistan. And I sent out those emails and those messages and those Twitter DMs like crazy. And yeah, I was just increasing my surface area for luck to try and maximize my own reach. And it worked out for us. We closed the amount that we wanted to raise, I think, within like 10 to 12 working days. And then after that, we had offers on the table to increase the round size pretty substantially. But that's not something that we were interested in. So we had to say actually no to quite a lot of people. But yeah, our round went really fast. We were very, very lucky and very blessed and very privileged that we were able to be done with it very, very fast and get back to work.
Before I let you go, there's one last question I have for you. What does success look like for Metric? Like, where do you see yourself within like 5 years?
So success for Metric is that we are in other emerging markets also, that we become a household name for anybody that has a small business, a side hustle, a medium-sized business, anything at all in emerging markets. If people are building businesses, Metric should just be a very common building block. Like not even something, just like having a Facebook page. When you're starting a business, whether or not you should have a Facebook page for your business is no longer a question. Like pretty much every small business will have a Facebook page. That's what I want Metric to become, where, okay, you're starting a business, you create a Facebook page, an Instagram account for your business, and you create, you download Metric and you create your company on Metric. And that's it. That's how you start from day zero. That's what I want for Metric. 5 years down the line, there are other things that we want to be doing. We want to be offering other things to people who are using Metric. We want to be able to connect Metric to their bank accounts so that they're, money flowing in and out of their banks, expenses that they're kind of putting into Metric, etc. All of those flows become simpler for them. We want to try and start to build products on top of Metric by the 5-year mark. But like even right now, Zahid, it gives me so much pleasure to tell you, people are using our app in other countries. They're using our app in Nigeria. They're using our app in, like in the Middle East. They're using our app in multiple other countries. Even though that's not something that we started off with. So it is a product that is truly passportable. It can be used anywhere where a small business wants to just start and wants to make sure that they have a check on the health of their business from day one, constantly on the go, on their phone at all times. But yeah, we have big plans, inshallah.
I know I said one last question, but one more question.
No worries. As you can probably tell, I'm super passionate about everything that you're talking about. So like, I will answer as many questions as you want.
Because accounting is like one specific, it requires some knowledge, even if you are just trying to do some basic things, to have some idea about how things work really helps. So is there like within the Metric app, is there a way for the users of the app to, let's just say if they have a question about accounting, to connect with someone on your team to get a better understanding of the underlying concept?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, this is something we feel strongly about because we know how hard accounting is. And it's not just something that you can, do using tech and then be able to do it well, even with like the simplest of products. So we have multiple things that we're trying to almost build like a support ecosystem around the app itself. So first of all, when you're using Metric, you have access to chartered accountants. And like that's a given. It doesn't matter, even on the free app. But on the paid app, for sure, you have dedicated chartered accountants that are like supervising your account. So we have a free app, and then there's a $29 version, and there's a $79 version, which is about 5,000 rupees and then about 15,000 rupees for different sizes of businesses and different use cases also, and different features that you get for all three apps. But you get access to like highly trained professionals, ACCAs, CA track professionals, chartered accountants, and that's a given at all times. Also within the app, we have in-app video features. So if there's like a thing like it says customer acquisition cost, and you're using the app and you don't understand what that means exactly, you are able to click on that word, and it opens up an in-app video where it's me, because as a startup, we can't afford to hire like Aiza Khan to do these videos right now. So it's me, I made those videos, but I'm going to explain to you in that video, what is CAC? Why is it important for a small business? What does it mean if your CAC is like going up or going down, etc.? And you can do that for any of the terms that are in the app itself. There's also like support buttons. You can go into a WhatsApp chat to talk to our accountants. So there's like multiple layers. We also have very like detailed explainer videos for how the app works. And now we're actually also building explainer videos for different sectors. So if you're a doctor that has a clinic, how do you use metrics specifically? There's an explainer video that's going to come out around that. If you are a gym owner that wants to use metric, how does a gym owner use metric? How does a freelancer use metric? So we're creating all of those pieces of content and kind of pushing them out into the metric support ecosystem, so that nobody has to be afraid of accounting concepts or accounting anymore. And yeah, you get access to accountants at all times.
Well, it's been really wonderful talking to you and learning more about Metric. Thank you for being on the Misaal podcast. Best of luck with everything. Hopefully we'll hear more funding rounds and more success.
Thank you so much, Zahid. And thank you so much for inviting me. And I love that you also took Umar's course. So you are like already connected to us as well. And, if you have any thoughts around what you think our business should be doing, or, if you have any feedback or advice for me, I would love to hear that also. But thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Misaal podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and will thank me by writing a review or sharing it on social media. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks again. See you soon.